Hello, everyone. Mr. Efi Naveh, head of the Israeli Bar Association. Ms. Hilary Bass, president of the American Bar Association, honorable guests, and dear colleagues. It is a great honor to be here today and to be able to share with you some of the thoughts, and especially I want to thank Efi Naveh and the Israeli Bar Association for inviting me today to share these thoughts with the bar. This is one of the good opportunities to conduct a dialogue with the legal community. We meet lawyers on a daily basis when they come to represent the interest of the clients, and although our meetings are from opposing sides usually, we truly believe that lawyers have a very important role in bridging and delivering messages from side to side, from the business community to us, the Antitrust Authority, and also explaining to their clients our way of thinking, the Antitrust Authority way of thinking. Let me, for the guests from abroad, give you a few words of background on the Israeli Antitrust Authority. The Israeli Antitrust Authority was established in the mid-90s as an independent authority. It is today a professional authority and has no political influence whatsoever. It has its own budget, according to the law, and it has an independent authority to hire employees and to engage in contracts. After the social protest of 2011, when people went out to the streets to protest on the cost of living, the Israeli Antitrust Authority received quite a boost. It expanded very much. It received more authority. And today, we employ about 120 employees, and our budget is around 60 million new Israeli shekels. When I try to explain very broadly what the Israeli Antitrust Authority does, I usually divide the activity of the Israeli Antitrust Authority to three parts. The first part is a transaction review, mainly merger review. We put a lot of emphasis on our merger review activity and try very much to do it quickly to serve the business community as quickly as possible. The other part of our work is the enforcement part. The Israeli Antitrust Authority has broad enforcement authorities. It has criminal authorities. It has an investigation team that investigate criminally, especially cartels, not only, but mainly cartels. And it has also administrative enforcement powers. Currently, and in the last few years, the main administrative authority that the Antitrust Authority has is to impose administrative fines. This is the enforcement activities. Enforcement activity is becoming bigger and bigger throughout the time. It got a lot of boost when we received the authority to impose administrative fines, and we invest quite a lot of time in both pursuing the cartel activity and also in pursuing dominance cases and abuse of dominance cases. The third pillar of the Antitrust Authority work is to promote competition. The Israeli Antitrust Authority sees itself as the council of the government on competition and on competition promotion. And we invest growing resources in this work. We do more and more advocacy work. We work a lot with government authorities and government agencies on reforms, on suggested ways to improve competitions, on way to reduce the regulatory barriers on the business community. And we feel that this is one of the most important things, important missions that the Israeli Antitrust Authority has. Although the legal community confronts us on many fronts, I believe that on the very basic level, the legal community understands very well what the Antitrust Authority wants to achieve and supports the goal of promoting competition in the Israeli market. We, on the other side, believe that the legal community keeps us on our toes. They make sure that we consider all relevant interests, that we conduct ourselves in a fairly manner, in a reasoned manner, in transparent manner, and that we keep the principle of due process. One of the very good examples for this is the hearings that we conducted recently in the last few months in connection with a suggested reform to the antitrust law. We received comments from more than 35 different entities, many of them lawyers, and among them also the ABA. This hearing was extremely beneficial for us. In some cases, we accepted the comments that we received and changed the suggested reform according to the remarks. In other cases, we did not accept the remarks, but the remarks that we received made us reconsider once again whether we're able to explain why we insist on this change and why we do not want to change it. And the internal discussions that took place following the hearing was extremely beneficial for us. I want to take a few minutes to go deeper into the suggested reform and to talk a little bit on what's involved in it. And then I will dedicate a few words to the merger filing thresholds as it being one of the main topics that concerns the international bar community. So, a few words on the suggested reform. A few changes that we suggest to Parliament, to the Israeli Knesset. We suggest raising the filing thresholds for mergers from a joint revenue of 150 million new Israeli shekel to 360 million new Israeli shekels. The threshold, the filing threshold was not changed since 1999. The Israeli economy, on the other hand, changed a lot, and we think that a substantial increase is in place. We suggest allowing the Antitrust Authority to decide that it requires a second phase for reviewing a merger. Today, when we want a second phase, we want to go deeper into a review, we need the consent of the parties. Unlike any other jurisdictions that we are familiar with, and therefore we suggest establishing in the law the ability to receive a second phase period of 120 days, up to 120 days. We suggest expanding the self-assessment regime substantially, and thus allowing less requests for exemptions to reach the authority. This will be done not through law, but through expanding the block exemptions that already exist in the Israeli regime, but it will be a very substantial expansion of the block exemptions. We suggest reducing the time of review of exemption requests from 90 days, from the current 90 days to 30 days. We want exemptions requests to be decided at the same manner and the same speed as merger requests, and we suggest it by law. We suggest changing the definition of monopoly. According to the Israeli law, the monopoly is defined as every entity that holds more than 50% market share. We suggest introducing the term of market power into the definition, allowing not only companies that hold more than 50% market share to define as monopoly, but also companies that hold market power. We also suggest changing the structure of the criminal punishment on cartels, expanding them from maximum 3 years imprisonment to maximum 5 years imprisonment. But on the other hand, we will delete the abbreviated circumstances offense. And last, and pretty much least, we suggest changing the name of the restrictive trade practices law, which is completely ununderstood, to the name of competition law. So as promised, I would like to dedicate a few words to the filing thresholds for mergers in Israel, because this, I know, is a topic that concerns very much the international community. In Israel, we have 3 different filing thresholds. The first one is by joint revenue of the merging parties. As I mentioned before, we are suggesting to raise the joint revenue threshold from 150 million to new Israeli shekel to 360 new Israeli shekel. But there are 2 other filing thresholds. The first one is if the merger of the party creates a market share of more than 50%, filing should be done. And if a party to the merger is a monopoly in any market, also filing must be done. We decided not to change the 2 additional filing thresholds, notwithstanding a broad criticism that we received on this 2 filing threshold. The criticism mainly argues that the 2 other thresholds are not clear enough. They are very difficult to assess, since they really require the process of market definition and the process of measuring market share. This criticism comes mainly from the American bar. We truly understand this comment, and personally, I completely agree with it. We understand why in mergers, the business community needs clarity and certainty. We understand why this is crucial for parties that merge to understand whether filing is required. However, the American practitioners and the American bar need to understand that our system works very differently from their system, from the American system. While in the US merger regime, it is illegal to merge into mergers that harm competition, whether filing is required or not. This is not the case in Israel. In Israel, if a merger falls under the filing threshold, it's legal. It is legal per se. And there is no way how I can challenge such a merger. There is no way how I can prevent it. If filing is not required, then the parties are good to go. Now let's take an example. 2 small grocery stores in a small town in the Negev, for example, decide to merge. There are the 2 only grocery stores in this town in the Negev. Now, if they merge, they may certainly fall below the filing thresholds. They will not need to file, and I will have nothing to do about this merger, although it is pretty sure that the consumers will be harmed and prices will go up in such a market. In the US, the system is different. In the US, even if HSR filing is not needed, the general rule will not allow such a merger. The antitrust authorities will be able to challenge such a merger after it has happened, even if filing was not required. And in fact, in several cases, the antitrust authorities in the US used this force and unbundled a merger after it was done because they felt it harms competition. This is an authority they have that I do not have. Therefore, we feel that it is our responsibility to prevent harm to consumer, even in small communities and even in small markets. The market share thresholds that I mentioned before allows us to comply with our duty. The American system also is not exempt from taking care of small communities and small markets. It only does so ex post and not ex ante. I would humbly argue that although our filing thresholds are less certain and less clear than the Americans' one, our system of merger control as a whole is more certain and clearer, because for parties to a merger to be challenged ex post is much graver than filing a merger ex ante, even if it is not completely clear if filing is needed. I will shortly mention two other amendments that we suggest in the law. I will emphasize on them shortly because we feel that these two amendments bring us very much closer to the international community and makes our law much more similar to the international community. The first one is the expansion of the self-assessment regime and collaboration among competitors that are not cartels, of course. Israel is left today the only jurisdiction in which we still have exemption regime. The European Commission and the European different jurisdictions abandoned the system of exemptions and went to self-assessment about 13 or 14 years ago. And we're still with the exemption system. We want very much to expand the self-assessment and to reduce the exemption system, and hence we suggest to expand the block exemptions. The other things that we do in order to make ourselves a little more like the international arena is the change of the definition of monopoly. Israel is left the only country in which monopoly or dominance is defined only according to market share. In many other countries, it's defined only according to market power or according to both market power and market share. We suggest moving to a system that will allow us to define monopoly according to market power and according to market share, and I think this is one step towards the international arena. I was specifically asked to talk about the big data companies and how we react to them, so I will finish by saying a few words on this topic. There is very little at this stage that I can say, and that's why I left it to the end of my talk, but still I will refer to it since I was specifically asked to. When we talk about the big data companies, of course, we talk about Google, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, and the like. I believe we all understand that these companies and other giants built on network effects and on the big data raise huge regulatory challenge for us. Some of the challenges are privacy issues. Some of the challenges are consumer protection issues. And some of them are indeed competition issues. We need, first of all, to eliminate what the competition issues are and not mingle them with privacy issues and consumer protection issues. The second stage is to understand what issues and challenges are global ones and what issues are Israeli specific. The Israeli Antitrust Authority is not fit to handle global issues. It is too small and has no capacity to lead the global confrontation of such challenges. But after making these two caveats, it is true to say that we took upon ourselves to learn the relevant market and the market failures that comes with it and are involved in such markets. The research of the big data companies market and the market difficulties was put into our work plan for 2018, and accordingly, work on this has begun already. It is too early to say more than that, but we will certainly consult with our colleagues around the world to learn from their experience and how to, and their knowledge on how to handle this issue. And we hope that we will come with an outcome on what is the specific issues that such company raise to the Israeli economy. Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you today, and have a lovely and interesting afternoon.